Hello there, welcome along to Good Morning Transfers. Gareth Bale made quite the impact for Real Madrid last night, but his manager says nothing has changed in his stance on the player's future. We will bring you the latest shortly.
It's hotter in Newcastle today than in Joelinton's hometown. The strikers brought the Samba weather. Will he bring the goals?
Sounds good. We'll also be heading live to the Wolves training ground and we'll be hearing from Manchester United boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
And after all the worry, what a summer it is turning out to be for Chelsea. Callum Hudson-Odoi is the latest to show faith in Frank's project. We'll tell you everything you need to know.
The gaffer's back in the building. Dave Reed is here. He's seen the new addition of Felipe Luis to the free agent 11, but today is the role of the right centre midfielder. You make sure you get involved. Use the hashtag #TransferTalk.
And don't forget the latest episode of the Transfer Talk podcast, also available to download right now. It's on iTunes, Spreaker and the Sky Sports website. We were joined by Spanish football expert Dermot Corrigan yesterday, who gave us his insights on the Gareth Bale situation. That is where we're going to start once again this morning. He did come off the bench last night in their pre-season match with Arsenal. Mark, fair to say it was a pretty eventful night for him.
Yeah. Good morning, team. Let's be honest, if this was Gareth Bale's last appearance for Real Madrid, it was pretty special. It was dramatic. It had everything. Let's start off with the impact he made from the bench. He didn't start the game, but he came off the bench at half-time in a substitution by the manager Zinedine Zidane. His impact was immediate. Just 11 minutes in, and he scored. Not the best goal, but an important one to get Madrid back into the game. And then we had another moment, and this showed sort of defensive awareness, really, on the line, a nice goal-line clearance. That's a different side of his game, you know, the intelligence, the picking up in the right position. And then on the 79th minute, that effort went just wide, and when you look at the reverse angle, you see the quality there, outside of the boot, almost into the top corner. And then another important moment, it finished 2-2, it went to penalties, Gareth Bale stepped up to take the first one, and it was saved. Not a great penalty there, nice and tame really. Goalkeeper down to the right-hand side, nice and easy for him. But it's fair to say, like you say, eventful for Gareth Bale.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because he's certainly not showing signs of a player who is necessarily unhappy. I mean, his demeanour was good, he was going for things. That goal line clearance as well. I mean, it's not necessarily looking like a miserable player, head down, not smiling.
He's just doing what Gareth Bale does. He's just getting on with his football. And you've seen that throughout his career when he was at Southampton, when he was at Tottenham. There was a really bad run of games where he was involved in a Tottenham side that couldn't pick up 3 points.
Record loss that season, yeah.
Absolutely. But he just carried on and he kept performing, he kept getting better. We heard from Jake Thompson on the show yesterday, someone who played with Gareth Bale in that Southampton academy, who said he spent so much time working on his body, he worked on the gym, he worked on improving after training, and he just got on with his football. And that's exactly what he's doing at Real Madrid.
Quite like that. He didn't really celebrate, did he?
Yeah.
It was just a little smirk when he ran back to the halfway line. I like that.
Yeah.
I think we're looking into it a little bit too much. I think it's just a professional just getting on with his job.
Yeah.
I think he just wants to.
I think that's
he just wants to keep fit, regardless of all the speculation that's around his future. I think he's looking at it like, I still have to maintain my standards of how I look at myself, and you can see the quality. I mean, that effort with the outside of the boot. It just, honestly, oozed the quality. Literally.
Oh, I love it when players do that. Adel Tarab was the one at QPR, that goal outside of the boot, brilliant.
Yeah, and I mean, Zinedine Zidane spoke after the match as well, but I mean, it's fair to say he's pretty uncompromising here from Zidane.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say his stance isn't really changing. This is what he said after the game. He said, he's here and I don't know what will happen. He wanted to be with us today. He trained normally and played the match. I make the decisions, and he played one half. We'll have to see what happens. Nothing has changed. You know the situation. He's still here with us at this stage. So not really changing much at all, is it?
It's just a difficult stance to be in. I mean, there's not many times where a world-class player can go up against a manager and win that battle. But then you're talking about world-class players going up against a manager, but it's not just a typical manager. You're talking about arguably probably the most favoured player in Real Madrid's history. So it's a difficult situation for Gareth Bale to be in, because it's very clear that Zidane does not see him in his personal plans.
Yeah, well, Zidane said it there himself. We'll have to see what happens. We certainly will. We will, of course, bring you up to speed with any developments. But let's, for now, head to Dave. Dave, what's the state of play?
Yes, this is what else is happening. Let's bring you up to speed with the latest deals. Newcastle have announced the signing of Joelinton from Hoffenheim. We're going to be discussing him in just a moment. Tottenham have reached an agreement with the Mexican side, CF Monterrey, for the transfer of Vincent Janssen. Brendan Rodgers says nothing has changed with regards to the future of Harry Maguire, insisting Leicester do not need to sell him. Brentford have rejected Aston Villa's most recent offer of more than £14 million for winger Saïd Benrahma, and we understand that West Brom want to take Everton defender Mason Holgate back to the Hawthorns on loan.
Yeah, so you heard Dave mention him there. Big news from Newcastle. They've signed Brazilian striker Joelinton for a club record fee of £48 million from Hoffenheim. It's a 6-year deal. It is, of course, the second time they've broken their transfer record in 7 months after they paid that £21 million for Miguel Almiron in January. Joelinton said, "I'm really happy to be here." He'll wear the club's number 9 shirt. He said, "I know it's a large investment that the club has made in me. That comes with a huge responsibility. I'm highly motivated and hope to give back on the pitch." Newcastle fans, let us know what you think. Use that hashtag transfer talk. But this, I mean, it's certainly a positive move for Newcastle, a step in the right direction here. They're going the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any time a club breaks their transfer record, it should excite the fans, you know, and they've done it twice in 2019. I think that's important to remember. I know the fans aren't happy with the way the club's been run, but right now they've signed someone and it's a new transfer record. And it's a Brazilian international as well. And I think it's important that this signing goes down as a huge step forward for the club. I think the fans want to see perhaps another 4 or 5 steps forward, but this is a significant one at the start of the time of Steve Bruce's era. I know the deal was probably in place before Steve Bruce came to the club, but he is the manager that has officially signed Newcastle's record signing, and he's a Brazilian international.
What you say?
No, you... Honestly.
Oh, guys, you can speak after, it's fine. Well, you say Brazilian international. He's someone who cites Roberto Firmino as his role model, and there are actually a lot of parallels between the players, because Hoffenheim signed Firmino for £3.6 million back in January 2011. 4.5 years later, sold him to Liverpool for £37 million. Similar bit of profit for them here when they bought Joelinton in for under £2 million back in 2015, now sold him for a reported £40 million. Similar ages at the time of the move. And you've got to remember, Firmino's move to Liverpool wasn't without risk at all, because Hoffenheim, back then a mid-table team in the Bundesliga, he moved to Liverpool at a time when they just missed out on the Premier League title. So Joelinton, on the other hand, leaves a Hoffenheim team just missed out on European football. So whether he can replicate Firmino's performances...
That's some big shoes to make some comparisons to. I mean, Roberto Firmino's come to the Premier League, taken to the Premier League very well, and excelled in Liverpool's system and team. I think Joelinton's still got a lot to prove. I mean, his goal-scoring record for Hoffenheim last year was okay, but wasn't prolific. And I just want to add the nostalgia element of it. He's taken on the number 9 shirt at Newcastle. Newcastle historically have associated that shirt with their premier goal scorer. Now, I don't want to add any more pressure to him because he now knows he's the record signing, but a 6-year deal, number 9 shirt, I mean, the goal-scoring record that he's taken from last season, it's a lot of pressure on this young man to hit the ground running.
I think it's exciting, though. You look at him as a player, he's Brazilian, he's powerful, he's athletic, he glides with the ball, he's got long stride. You see some of the clips on YouTube, you look at some of the games from last season, he looks like someone who wants the pressure on his shoulders and can deal with the pressure. He looks like he wants to be the main man.
He does.
He carries an arrogance on the pitch, which I think is a good thing. And I think Newcastle fans will look at this signing and they'll be excited.
Yeah, Mark, we're just going to have to jump in here because we do have some breaking news to bring you from Aston Villa. And actually, Dave Reed, you've got the latest for us. What is this?
Yeah, this has just come across us in front of us here right now. Aston Villa delighted to announce the signing of Mahmoud Hassan, also known as Trezeguet, for an undisclosed fee. This is subject to a work visa and international clearance. He moves to Villa Park from the Turkish side, Kasim Pasa. He started his career in Egypt with Al Ahly as an Egyptian international who's been playing in the African Cup of Nations this summer. He moved to Europe to sign for Anderlecht, and then also had a spell in another spell at a different club in Belgium before then moving to Turkey He's a regular for his country, and as I just mentioned there, has returned from the African Cup of Nations, where he made 4 appearances, scoring once. He is a wide player, pacey wide player, has got a trick as well, and it's an area of the field that Dean Smith has been looking to strengthen. Already brought in Anwar El Ghazi in that position as well. He's been looking at a wide player. We mentioned earlier in the show, Saïd Benrahma from Brentford. Looks like Villa have now moved on from that player now, and it's Trezeguet, the one that they have invested in for this sum of money. And Villa continuing to spend money. This is
fascinating.
Probably over £110 million now that they've spent.
The only concern I have is, are they doing too much? You know, they had such a strong dressing room last year. They had a great togetherness at Villa. They got promoted from the Championship. That run at the back end of the season was instrumental in them getting into the playoffs and then promoted. Would this amount of signings perhaps upset the apple cart a little? Is there too many fresh faces in there?
I think you just got to look at your squad and understand the quality of the Premier League. And the Championship has improved so much, especially in the last 2 to 3 years. But there's still a big gap when you come to the Premier League. And I think Dean Smith has identified that and just looked to add quality to the quality he has already. And there's nothing wrong with that. Adding depth to your squad, there's nothing wrong with that. Competition for places, that's a good thing within any squad.
And what I would just say there on character, Richard O'Kelly, one of Dean Smith's assistants, has been quite outspoken this summer, saying that they have looked into the character of a lot of these players. They put a lot of emphasis on the spirit that was within the squad that got Aston Villa promoted to the Premier League, and that is something that they're looking to keep going forward. And as we've been saying, over £100 million spent, strengthening wide areas. They've got in Hotter, they've got in Anwar El Ghazi permanently. Now they've got in Trezeguet. They've signed Courtney Howes, Bjorn Engels, Tyrone Mings.
Keep going, keep going.
Wesley. Hope I've not forgotten anybody. Matt Targett, the left back. And I think they might even do one more. They're looking for a goalkeeper, maybe 1 or 2 more, maybe another striker. So Villa fans, it's quite an exciting time of year.
And Trezeguet named after David Trezeguet as well.
Is that right?
Yes.
There we go.
There you go.
Fact of the day.
Similar style of player.
Yeah, Villa fans, loads of you have been getting in touch in the past, seem really excited, as you say, Dave. Keep on getting in touch, #TransferTalk. Let's move on now to developments on the future of Chelsea winger Callum Hudson-Odoi, who is close to agreeing a new contract at the club, which will be worth £180,000 a week. Dave, tell us more about this one.
Yes, so this is all coming, of course, after Bayern Munich looked to be front runners to be signing the winger. They have rejected a number of bids from Bayern Munich for Callum Hudson-Odoi, and this was one of Frank Lampard's key aims when he took over, really, at Stamford Bridge. Because of this transfer ban that's ongoing at the moment, the key opportunity was to re-sign Callum Hudson-Odoi, who was entering the final year of his contract, and for the player as well, to have a club of the stature of Bayern Munich chasing you as well. I think it's a really significant moment for him, because he sees the trust that Chelsea are now putting in him for the future. And so a really important milestone, I would say, in Frank Lampard's time in charge.
It's so important that you pick up that rumoured interest that was there, the reported interest that Bayern Munich were very aggressive. Hassan Salihamidzic, as I say all the time, he's very aggressive with these wingers, these young wingers that he looks at as prospects to replace Robin and Ribery. And Callum Hudson-Odoi was probably top of their list. 4 reported bids, I mean, the latest of which was about £21.5 million. So you can see that their interest was very significant in the winger. But Chelsea fans will be overwhelmed the fact that they've signed him for the foreseeable future anyway. I mean, he's going to still need time, because ask any sportsman coming back from a ruptured Achilles is probably the worst injury he could come back from. But he's 18, 19, he's going to give himself a lot of time to develop, and he's still going to develop mentally and physically again. So they're going to have hopefully, his best years ahead of him.
And of course, it got to a point in January where he ended up handing in a transfer request as well. So it is a remarkable turnaround that, you know, he's at Chelsea, he seems to want to stay
That's
at
got
Chelsea.
to be, yeah, that's got to be down to Frank Lampard. No player would sign a 5-year contract if the manager wasn't saying to him, look, you are in the plans, you are part of the future of this football club, you are going to be significant for Chelsea for many, many years, and I see you in my first team. So that gives you an indication. You've seen it with Mason Mount, you've seen it now with Callum Hudson-Odoi. Ethan Ampadu has gone out on loan. There are young players at Chelsea that are all apparently a part of the project.
Well, Mark, it just makes sense. Think about it. If you walk into a changing room and you have a Chelsea legend in front of you, but not just a Chelsea legend, an England football legend in front of you that's turning around and saying to you, look, I'm here now for the foreseeable future and I see you as my part of my long-term plans, like, that would make anybody, I'll give anybody incentive. I mean, regardless of who it is, it would give anybody incentive.
Well, that's it. It's what we're talking about. It is the Frank Lampard effect, isn't it? Because at points this summer, we thought, what are Chelsea going to do? They can't bring any players in. And now it's, if you're a Chelsea fan, you said overwhelmed. They'll be thinking this is a pretty good summer. They got Pulisic in, who they signed in January, Kovacic in on a permanent deal. You said new contract for Mason Mount, new contract for Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and now a new contract for Callum Hudson-Odoi, who was so key for them to keep this summer. And it's not just the players either. It's, you know, Frank Lampard, and they've also brought back Petr Cech to the club as well. So I think Chelsea fans pretty excited. And had Lampard not come in, would they have kept Callum Hudson-Odoi? Probably not.
Yeah, of course, this one, it is close, so we will bring you confirmation if and when this one happens with Callum Hudson-Odoi. But yeah, plenty coming up.